According to the pollster Ipsos, Sir Keir Starmer's unfavourability rating has surged by 8 points to 46%. That matches its high after Labour's humiliating loss in the 2021 Hartlepool by-election. I remember it well. And this government, well, they're busy cutting winter fuel payments for 780,000 pensioners, leaving a shocking number of disabled and elderly Brits out in the cold. That isn't my words, they're from the Department for Work and Pensions. But don't worry, they've decided against doing a full impact assessment, despite doing one in 2017, when it was rumoured that the Tories were doing exactly the same as they're doing now. Meanwhile, their bright idea for fixing overcrowded prisons has backfired spectacularly, with a man released already back inside for allegedly sexually assaulting someone. You couldn't make it all up. But hey, at least smoking and unhealthy food are next on the chopping block, eh? Priorities. They're your priorities, aren't they? That's what you at home care about. Banning smoking areas and unhealthy food on telly adverts. What more could Britain possibly need? I'm at the end of my tether, Renee. I need... what have you got, sedatives-wise? Come on.
I think sedatives is going to be the only answer. I think we're in for a very long, hard 4 years and 9 months, however long it is.
Are you surprised at those numbers?
I'm surprised that it's happened so quickly. I mean, look, when Blair came to power, there really wasn't enthusiasm for him, and he floated along on that enthusiasm for quite a long time. But Starmer has just come in and sunk, as you rightly say, like a stone. I'm surprised it's happened so quickly.
Will, I mean, you've been keeping an eye out on everything that's been going on in Britain. Now, do you actually observe this as a bad government already?
I think it's worse than a bad government. I think it's a dangerous government.
Wow.
You know, there is only one thing worse than an authoritarian, and it's a boring authoritarian. You know, at least some authoritarians in the past have a bit of bravado about them. It's the combination of this authoritarian instinct mixed with the joyless, sad, grim negativity, which I don't think you need from a leader in a time where you need to see a positive spirit to get us out of some of the mess that we're in.
So you think he's authoritarian, Will, but at the same time, presumably, you'll be criticising him for letting prisoners out early? Well, which is it?
He did it the wrong way. He should have just got the 10,000 odd prisoners who are from other countries and booted them out. There are more sensible ways to go about doing this.
You can't just boot them out. We might all want foreign criminals to be deported if they came here as adults. That's one thing. But because there are agreements in place with other countries, and those need to be negotiated, because guess what? We live in a globalised world where we have responsibilities to other countries.
So what agreement do we have in place with the Taliban? So if an Afghan commits a crime, you're saying we can't just deport them and put them there?
Well, if we were to deport someone back to Afghanistan, then they might be tortured or killed by the Taliban.
That's not our problem.
Well, it's my problem. I'm a British citizen, and I don't want to be deporting people, even if they've committed crimes. I don't want to be deporting them back to countries where they might get executed or tortured.
If they tortured and raped a child, you still would care about how they were treated when they went home?
I'd have them in prison for the longest possible time under our legal system.
I'll give you a real-world example. There was a guy that came here from Afghanistan, was given 29 years for killing Tom Roberts, who was an aspiring Royal Marine, and he had been caught with a machete 2 days before, and the police just shrugged their shoulders and didn't do anything, evidently. Now, the fact of the matter is, I don't want, as a taxpayer, to have to fund him at His Majesty's pleasure for the next 29 years. I actually think I don't give a damn what happens to him in Afghanistan. If you've murdered a British citizen, why the hell should you expect any so-called human rights and liberal values when you commit such an awful crime?
Because we're still a civilised country. For example, we don't have the death penalty in this country, unlike, say, unlike a country, say, like Iran, we don't stone people. Unlike a country like, say, Saudi Arabia, we don't chop people's heads off.
And that's a country
I want to be in. Doesn't mean that I don't revile the crime that you've been talking about with every inch of my body, just as you do.
Eunice, you're from Iran. Yeah. Do you see it? Do you see the comparison Matthew is making between if we were to be more robust with foreign offenders and what Iran does to its own criminals?
Yeah, well, I think we need to leave the ECHR because I feel like we have too many laws and regulations that stop us from deporting illegals or even having illegals in this country. And once they arrive at this country and they commit a crime and they go to prison, it's almost impossible for us to deport them because of the laws that we have. And I think these laws are the ones that need to change.
It's really interesting, though, isn't it? That I understand what you mean. Of course, we're all humane, and we don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want anyone to suffer in the world. But once they commit a hideous crime and they're in our prison service, I really don't care if we send them back to Afghanistan or wherever they're going to go. I don't care if we send them back to America and they face the death penalty, because that's the law in America.
That's, I guess, one of the differences between you and I.
I think there are lots.
Yeah, I mean, Eunice, do you actually think that we ought to... I mean, the fact of the matter is, right, that we'll have a lot of people... I agree with you on the ECHR, but the political will of politicians isn't there to do this either. Otherwise, we would have done it. Germany, for example, is ignoring the ECHR currently. So, you know, the likes of Hungary, the likes of Austria saying they agree with what Hungary are doing, busing illegal migrants to Brussels, potentially. So there are a whole host of examples throughout Europe, but we're not following them. Do you think this is a bit of a weak nation?
It is a weak nation, and we are seen as a soft target because people immigrate here from all kinds of extreme ideological backgrounds, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from even Iran, some people, you know, Eastern Africa. And they come here and they see us as a soft target. So they come here, they take advantage of our welfare system, they take advantage of our NHS, they commit crimes, and they are caught with a machete. The police doesn't do anything. So I feel like we need to be a lot more...
So who commits crime? Who commits crimes? You're saying all illegal migrants or all asylum seekers commit crimes, or some?
I didn't say that. I said that the fact that we are very soft, we need to be a lot more robust in our immigration policy.
How are we not soft?
Because we have laws in place, and because we are a country with borders. And if you talk to the men and women who are trying to keep us safe in this country, they will tell you they are doing their absolute best. The fact that we can't simply pick up people, vulnerable people, many of them, I would say all of them by definition if you're crossing the Channel, and then simply march them back to France because we have, again, a relationship, a legal relationship with France that would prevent us from doing that, doesn't mean we're a soft touch. It means we abide by international law. We're not a soft touch at all. We are a strong country, and we're a great country.
Surprisingly, I will agree with Matthew in that we are not a weak country, but this is a weak government, and that's something which people need to keep in mind.
But the last one didn't do anything about it.
And that was a weak government as well. We've had 20 years of bad government in this country. Now, there is a broader point, and you started here, Darren, by saying, is this a government in free fall? And the fact of the matter is, there is now several instances where they've got the optics of politics terribly wrong. When you saw prisoners being let out and suddenly being splashed with champagne as pensioners are being kicked. There's very obvious early signs that they struggle with the optics of politics as well as the execution of very basic political issues.
Where would you put those prisoners? Up in hotels?
Well, no, I wouldn't let them out, and then I'd change who we are choosing to let out, as we've just been talking about.
But they were trying not to let out...
A seriously posited idea by the Labour Party that they'll put those who have left prison in hotels.
I think we do home detention.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there are lots of other solutions. Last week in Kent, a man who has been caught for not the first time having child sex abuse images on his computer was let free by the judge because his counsel argued that he'd had a relapse because he was very stressed, but he had a job now, and if he went to prison, he'd lose his home and his job. Now, I would say that instead of putting people in prison who have committed fraud, who have committed the crime of sending hurty tweets or whatever else it is, let's deal with them. Let's punish them.
What do you mean by a hurty tweet? Do you mean, say, let's burn down asylum hotels? Would you classify that as a hurty tweet?
No, I just think we got our priorities in the wrong place. So we go after people on Twitter that had a freedom of speech, but then we don't deal with illegals and we don't deal with crime, and we are seen as...
Do you understand that speech is regulated in this country?
Yeah, it is, but you are still allowed to have an opinion based on facts, and I feel like what Keir Starmer is doing, emptying prisons, letting dangerous criminals out and arresting people that say something on Twitter is unacceptable.
Do you feel unable to express your opinion freely on this show?
No.
Okay, so we've got free speech.
We don't.
That's speech. That's a speech side.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's obviously in a unique position.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk, and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.